Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. Welcome to this webinar. Welcome to Wednesday afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on the dot, so let's get cracking. So, a couple of bits of admin. First of all, if you could go into the chat, you have an option of chat. If you could go into there and just let me know that you could hear me, that would be a great place to start. Thank you very much. Okay, the messages are coming through now. Great. Thank you, Tim. Hello, Tim. Nice to speak to you again. Thank you, Olu. Yeah, that's great. Thanks a lot. So as you'll see, you've got a couple of options in communicating with us. So you've got the chat, which I've just asked you to use, and you've also got a Q&A. So if you've got any questions, would you please put them in the Q&A, not in the chat, because the chat is just a constant feed. So if you put a question in there, and it might be the best question that I've ever heard, and then 10 other people put something, just chit chat, then it'll push your question away so that we're less likely to see it. But if you put your question in the Q&A, it means that we have to see it before we can move on to the next question. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the Q&A. That would be great. So there's quite a few people on board now. So like I just said, please put your questions in the Q&A. I've actually got Monica here with me this afternoon, who, if it's a question that we can answer really quickly and it's just relevant to you and your situation, then Monica will handle that straight away. If it's a question that we think that everybody will benefit from listening to and listening to the answer for, then we'll save that to the end, and then we'll have like a Q&A session at the end as well. So loads of opportunities for you to talk to us this afternoon. So don't you worry about that. But the purpose of this is for the content. So let's get straight on with the webinar. So a little bit of an introduction to me. My name is Chris Kirkwood. I'm the franchise director here at Sourced. And as well as being the franchise director, I've also founded, run and grown lots of other businesses in different business sectors. So training, service businesses, property businesses. All the businesses that I've been involved with have been built from absolute zero. So I've got quite a lot of experience when it comes to just building businesses in general. And of course, let's not forget that when you're starting out in property, when you're doing stuff in property, that is what you're doing. All right, it's property. And a lot of people tend to look at property differently from just starting a business, but that's essentially what you're doing. It's just starting a business, and all the same restrictions and rules and logic should apply when you're building a property business, just like if you're building any other business. I've been involved in property deals from £55,000 up to 150 million pounds. I'm sort of determined at the minute to get that £55,000 down a bit as well, because there's loads of people around that have made a lot of money by buying below £55,000. So I'm always on the lookout for new property deals. I've built my own portfolio, obviously using lots of different strategies, lots of different methods of engineering property so that you get a good return out of it. And now what I do is I oversee the whole running of the franchise operation. That involves quite a lot of looking at deals, looking at other people's deals, and looking at strategies that maybe I haven't used myself, because there are some out there, but I'm involved in them through other people, through helping to advise other people, through helping other people to navigate through those situations. And while they're navigating through those situations, they're obviously looking to provide themselves security. They're obviously looking to provide themselves a margin, and that's what we're here for, and that's what we do for our franchisees. When it comes to Sourced, and if you go to the website, there are actually 4 different elements to the website. So I thought I'd just explain what those 4 different elements to the website are, because when you first come here, you think, well, there's so much going on. What is the relevant stuff? So essentially, Sourced is a combination of 2 things. It's a combination of the franchise and Source Capital. So the franchise is here to provide training, provide support, provide leads, and provide networking for our franchisees. So that's what we do for our franchisees. I'll go into that in a bit more detail right at the end. And then we have Source Capital, who work alongside the franchise, and Source Capital can actually fund franchisees' projects. So not only do we have the ability to send our franchisees leads, they can then convert those leads with the help of their support person. Their support person will help them analyze whether that lead is worth pursuing, and then analyze whether the strategy that they're using for that lead is the best way to make money out of it. But then we can actually help fund that purchase as well. So it's like a complete solution for people who are starting up in property or want to scale their property business. Now, we've got a couple of other parts of our website which are not the core of our business, but they are sort of byproducts of those two, of franchise and capital. First of all, we've got Source Property. Now, this is aimed at investors. So investors can go into Source Property. They can find details of how to download our app. Again, I'll talk about that in a little while. But they can also find out a lot of learning information, a lot of links to podcasts, links to YouTube channels, links to white papers, a lot of content on there in order to show investors and help investors make good decisions. That's what it's all about, because what we want our investors to do, we want to upskill our investors so that they make good decisions, so that they then either go forward into Source Capital and fund our franchisees' projects, or they go directly to our franchisees and they buy deals off them. That's what the property side of our website is for. And then we've got Developments as well. Developments is currently under construction, no pun intended, but isn't that a very nice come together of words? So with Developments is all about the projects that we've got going on at Sourced HQ. And I think of all the projects that we've got going on at Sourced HQ, about 80 to 85% of them are joint ventures with our franchisees. And again, that's just purely for credibility. So you guys can see what our franchisees are doing. We're going to talk about JVs in a little while and how that ties together, especially for you guys who potentially haven't done a property project before, and you're looking at big construction projects and wondering how on earth you can get involved in that kind of thing. But we will get to that. So this is a little timeline of Sourced so far. So in January 2017, just 4 short years ago, the pilot scheme was launched. That pilot scheme was developed, the content was written, the structure was put in place, and then by September of the same year, the franchise model was actually launched out onto the market. In August of 2018, we received FCA approval in order to operate our Source Capital peer-to-peer funding arm. And then in October of 2018, we hit 40 franchisees. So just over a year it took us to get to 40 franchisees to start out with. February of the following year, we then joint ventured on a £150 million development, which is in Manchester. And in March of 2019, we received ISA and pension funding approval for the peer-to-peer platform, which was a huge boost, huge thing for our franchisees, because that means that people can invest into their projects in many different ways and many more tax efficient ways. January 2020, we were raising about £1 million a month in January 2020, and that's the first. I think that was the second month that we raised £1 million in a month, and so we were gaining really good momentum at raising funds, and the funds that we were raising were only put into our franchisees project. In April 2020, our developments pipeline hit 10 live projects. A few of those live projects are still going on, obviously, because projects usually take over 12 months to deliver, 12, 18, 24 months kind of projects. And then in March 2021, we hit 150 franchisees. So a lot of people are interested in the ecosystem that we've built up here. It's a very desirable product. It's a very all-encompassing product. So that continues to grow. And then in October 2021, we launched our property app. And the property app is purely for the benefit of our franchisees. Again, it means that they can put their property deals onto the app, and that is then sent out to our franchisees for all the not our franchisees, the investors that have downloaded the app, and then we can take really, really strong, good data from those investors, and we can feed that back to our franchisees. Now, this app only came out in October 2021, so I'm sure there'll be lots of different versions and lots of different updates to make sure that we're maximizing the data that we can gather from the app, but we will continue to do so. The purpose of this webinar is how to find property leads and also prepping for a new year. So when you're looking for property leads, first of all, you need to be specific about what you're looking for. You need to know, with everything that you're doing, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on when it comes to goal setting, but you need to have an outcome in mind when you're starting out. So with the outcome, you need to know exactly what you're looking for, and that what you're looking for comes back to what your skill set is, what you can achieve, because it's no good saying that you're going to come into property as a brand new property investor and what you're going to search for is land, because you probably don't have the necessary skills to assess land deals and put them out there to the market and then sell them to somebody who's going to ask you all kinds of questions that, if you are brand new to it, you've never heard and never considered. So the first thing that you need to take into consideration is what your skill set is and what you can actually deliver. And in most cases in property, finding something that is currently undervalued is the way to move forward. And despite the way that the market is operating at the minute, because the market is tough right now, supply has dropped and demand is still there. So that's why we have rising prices at the moment. However, we are still seeing franchisees who are finding undervalued stock. And we're going to go into a few different ways of finding that kind of stuff. But when you're looking for undervalued stuff, what you should be looking at is, if you find it and it's undervalued, then what you're going to do is you're going to take your knowledge, and you're going to make the best decision as to what you're going to use that house for. But if you find something that's already undervalued, it means that you're much more likely to generate that margin, because what you're looking for in any property deal is a margin. And if you find something that's undervalued, then you're more likely to have the margin that is going to satisfy the goals that you're trying to hit out of a property deal, be that, I don't know, 15, 20, 25% margins. So there's lots of different exits that you can use a property for, and it would be it's your responsibility to have a look at those different exits, or consider those different exits, and then come up with the one that makes the most sense. Now, as any of our franchisees will tell you, we have missed out a huge section here already, because the first thing that I recommend people do is not just go out there and start looking for property immediately. The first thing that I recommend people to do is to research. Do your research on your area, so that you know what the legislation is, you know what the regeneration schemes are, you know what the infrastructure changes are going to be, you know what the property prices are, you know what the growth is. That's the first thing you absolutely have to do before you start looking for properties. Because when you consider that, how many exits have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 8 exits here. Now, if you haven't done your research, you might think, well, let's do all the financial analysis for every one of those 8 exits, because I don't know which ones are achievable and which ones aren't. However, if you've done your research first, it means that you can look at those 8 exits and think, well, actually, I know that 6 of them I can't do because of legislation restrictions in that area. And therefore, I've only got 2 that I can do. So or I need to do the financial analysis for 2 of these exits and not all 8 of them. Immediately saving you time and effort and making your time much more efficient. So you've got 8 different exits here, and you can see from the pound sign we've got on the right-hand side, the one that we're going to choose for this property is that we're going to separate it into flats. But how do you find that undervalued property? So there's a couple of options. I'm sure you've seen these before. You've got online sourcing, and you've got direct to vendor. Now, this is just a webinar we've got in the courses that we run here at HQ for our franchisees. These slides will probably last about a day. However, we're gonna shoot through them. So this webinar is being recorded, and you will get a copy of it. So if you need to go over the slides again at a later date, you'll get a copy. But let's get going through them. So the first thing that I recommend for people to do is be very, very structured in the way that you're looking for property. So not only have you got that outcome in mind, so the outcome in mind that we currently have is that we're looking for undervalued property. Now, a lot of people, I think, let me have a think. Over the last 12 months, I've probably asked maybe rooms full of, 300 people in total to search for property for me, find me a property deal. It's one of the first things that I ask people. And I would say out of those 300 people, probably 2 or 3 have used keywords or have used Rightmove in an intelligent way in order to be efficient with their time. A lot of the tools that you need to be efficient with your time are already there. It's just that people get so used to going onto a platform like Rightmove and just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling that they get into this habit of doing so. And a lot of people look on their telephones, which doesn't give you the keyword option. However, again, being structured in your time, saying I'm going to sit down for an hour and I'm going to find deals in front of my computer, gives you access to some of the search tools that Rightmove has built into the platform, which means that you can be much more efficient. So you can use a combination of 3 keywords on Rightmove. Now, depending on the keywords that you choose, they can then make the properties that the kind of properties that you're looking for appear much higher in the search. So what I tend to do is I'll tell a room of people, find me a property deal, and they might find something, but then I'll talk to them about keywords, show them how to use it, and then come back to them after that and say, right, now find me a property deal using keywords. And 9.9 times out of 10, not only do they find more deals, but they also find better deals because they've been using keywords and searching intelligently for property. Now, these are all the keywords that we could think of, and obviously we've broken them down alphabetically, but I'm going to show you how to use them intelligently by grouping them together, because like I said, in Rightmove, you get a combination of 3 different keywords. So I don't have time, unfortunately, to give you a keyword demonstration, but we do use them on Rightmove. So these are the combinations that we tend to use. So for depressed valuation, I would use combinations of modernization, distress, subsidence, refurbishment, fire damage, uninhabitable, improved, water damage, or cash buyers only. Now, in your area, you could be anywhere in the UK. So if you're in London, the estate agents in your area might use a different term to describe a property that is essentially a bit of a tip in comparison to me, because I'm based in the Northwest. So what I would do is I would take down these keywords and I would try them in your area and see which ones return the best results in your area. And then go back to those ones. Go back to them and just keep using those keywords. Now, cash buyers only is a particularly good one for me because, and I would put that down as one keyword, cash buyers only, because that is the term that they use. Cash buyers only basically means that the property is unmortgageable. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't take finance out on that property, because bridges, for instance, Source Capital will lend to you on a property that is cash buyers only, that is unmortgageable. Your role there would be to find out why it's unmortgageable, how much is it to solve that problem of it being unmortgageable, and then put it onto the market as a mortgageable property. Because if it's unmortgageable, or if it's cash buyer only, that means that it's vastly cutting down the number of people that can potentially buy that property. And if it's cutting down the demand, but the supply is still there, that means the price is going to drop. So you're much more likely to get that at a lower price than the comparables. If you can solve that problem quickly, easily, and cheaply, and put it back and make a margin, then problem solved. But these are the depressed valuation ones, and that is where I would absolutely start. In fact, my record still is, if I ever hear anybody say that I can't find properties in my area, or red rag to a bull, this one, it's different in my area, then this is the first place that I start. Depressed valuation properties using keywords on Rightmove, and I will find something for you. I'll find something not only that works, but also something that you haven't seen before, if you're not using this search. But this search as a starting point is absolutely phenomenal. Now looking at title splits. So there's a couple of different ways to look at title splits. Firstly, title splits, if you think about it, title splits firstly came around for the same purposes that HMOs came around, because title splits were sort of around before HMOs. Because what somebody would do is somebody would buy like a big old Victorian property, and they'd look at that property and say, well, I could put a family in it and I could make £1,000 a month, or I could split it into 3 flats and I could make £800 per flat per month. So therefore, I'm increasing my cash flow. And before HMOs became a thing, you're talking 15, 20 years ago and more, that's what people did to increase their cash flow out of property. They used to turn them into flats instead of having them as a single buy-to-let. So if you could search for that kind of thing and you can find it, what you could now do is you could then get that legally split into flats, because you've got pre-existing use and proof of pre-existing use. So you could split it into flats. Then you could sell those flats individually. Now you might be able to buy that as one house, but you can sell it as 3 flats. And just like with the rent, there is an uplift in selling it as smaller units. So you could create your margin very, very easily. Now, planning isn't so much of an issue if you've got pre-existing use, because you could get a certificate of lawful use. Apologies if I'm going a bit deep in this for some people. But then selling them, because they're already done as well, the refurbishment cost might not be too big, because they've already been split into flats and been used as flats for a long time. So how do you find these? How do you go into Rightmove and you find these kind of properties? Well, yeah, you have got keywords, but actually you can add another layer to the way that you find these properties. So you could go into the top of Rightmove, where it says the property type. And in the property type, you could choose detached houses, semi-detached houses, or terraced houses. And then when you choose those 3 house types, You then go into the keywords and you put flats, apartments, and maybe self-contained. I don't think self-contained works that well, but flats and apartments. So what Rightmove is going to do then, Rightmove is going to do this sourcing for you, where it will only show you full houses that are for sale. But somewhere in the description, you've got flats and apartments. Now, that makes it far more likely that this kind of property that you're looking for, this kind of title split opportunity, then appears at the top of your search. It's a really great opportunity to look for, especially in towns and cities that have got the big Victorian and big Georgian houses. Old-fashioned sort of seaside towns are absolutely brilliant for this kind of thing. Now, that's one kind of title split. Another kind of title split would be if you're looking for that big property that could be split into flats or apartments. And in most cases, estate agents will put that in the description that this suits splitting into flats, splitting into apartments. And so you're going to find that kind of thing as well, the kind of the undeveloped ones, the ones that haven't been converted. Now, obviously, you need to take into consideration that's going to come at a higher conversion cost because you need to do the work to split them into flats or apartments. But again, if it works, it works. And you should be able to put those numbers together fairly swiftly. Another one that you could look for are assisted sales by using the keywords. Now, if you don't know what an assisted sale is, it's when you essentially it's a combination of two different strategies. It's a combination of a lease option strategy and a joint venture strategy. And what you're going to do is you're going to contact the owner of the property and say to them, "I'll work with you. You know, I'll do an update on your property. I'll refurbish your property, and then we'll put it back on the market. You'll get what you're looking for now, and I'll make any uplift in the property if there is any." The benefit of that to the owner is they get to sell the property, because most assisted sale offers will go out to the owner of the property after 6 months of it being on the market. Benefit to you is obviously you get to make the capital uplift. You secure that with 3 different contracts, one of which being a lease option. But you can find these properties and you can negotiate, and you can contact the owner of the property through Rightmove, through estate agents. It's been done many times before. It's just about building your relationship with the estate agent, then talking to the vendor, and then building your relationship with the vendor. And then you've got unmortgageable. So like we talked about earlier, you've got cash buyers, you've got motivated fire damage, subsidence, and water damage. Now these are 4 different strategies, 4 different things, 4 different types of property that you're looking for. Each one of these searches in your area could easily last an hour. You could easily spend a day looking for all of these 4 things by using keywords. But again, the important thing that you're going to do is you're going to be efficient with your time. You're going to set yourself goals, and your goals are going to be time bound. So for depressed valuation properties, you're going to look at that and you're going to say, for the next hour, all I'm going to do is find these deals. Find deals that I think are going to work. And then after that hour, the next hour, you're going to assess them. By forcing yourself to have a time restriction on what you're doing, you're forcing yourself to make decisions. Because too many times I've seen people who say, well, I'm just going to look on Rightmove today, and they're very wishy-washy about their decision making because they're not forcing themselves to move forward. But if you put time restrictions on yourself, you're forcing yourself to make decisions. Now, for our franchisees, they're in a great position because they then have their support people to fall back on, and they can pick up the phone to their support people. They can book in an appointment with their Calendly links. They can, contact them however they want to, send them a WhatsApp message to help them or to reassure them that they're making the right decisions. But even if you're not in that privileged position where you've got somebody to lean against to help you make the right decisions, still make decisions. And you know what? If you get some wrong, you get some wrong. But the important thing is that you learn from it. That's the way that I did it when I first started out in property. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have any training when I first started out. I just started investing, started making mistakes, started learning from my mistakes, and started building my property portfolio from there. So that's the residential stuff. That's where I would start for the residential sourcing, those keywords online with those keywords. And then when you find a property, what you then do is you then build your relationship with the estate agent. And it's really important. And I'd say this is the mistake that I think the majority of people make. And, I say this because I see it all the time. In all sales, in all when you're looking for something, the majority of people make this mistake where sales is not about the sell, the sales is all about the follow-up. So if you're interested in a property and you go to an estate agent and that property has already been taken, or it's fallen, the vendor's withdrawn it, or some reason that you're not going to get it, whatever that may be, the really important thing for you to do is then follow up with that estate agent, because you've already met them. They know you, they know that you're interested, they know that you're serious about property. So continue to follow up with them, so that the next time they see a property like that, they don't just put it out on the market. What they do is they pick up the phone to you and say, you were looking at this one before. Well, I've just got another one. It's going to go on the market on Thursday, but would you like to come and have a look before it goes on the market? That's what you're looking for when you're involved in property. So now looking online at commercial conversions or commercial properties that you can potentially make some money from. Again, the really important thing here is that you've done your research. You've done your research and you know exactly what you're looking for, and you know that you know of the consequences of what you're looking for. So if you're aware of PDMA, Permitted Development MA, which is mercantile to abode, which came in earlier this year, it allows properties within use class E to be converted to C3. There's a couple of restrictions and a couple of hoops that you need to jump through, but essentially it means that you shouldn't need to go through full planning in order to convert a property that is in use class E into C3. Now that's a massive benefit. It not only saves you a huge amount of time, but it saves you a huge amount of money, and it gives you security, because if you fit the requirements of PDMA, you know that you should be able to get it as a C3 property. So there's some certainty that you have around that decision making. Whereas if you go through full planning, you've always got the possibility of the planning department just saying no. They'd have to reference something in their long-term vision. However, they could just say no, and that's it. You can't do anything about it at that point. But under PDMA, you can. So you might be looking at commercial conversions. Now, in general, commercial conversions they're more complicated. You need deeper pockets, because you're going to be looking at employing more professionals, because the jobs tend to be bigger, and you tend to need more development experience, or certainly conversion experience. But from your point of view, you can still find these deals. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think that PDMA has really caught on to the scale that it could catch on to. Before PDMA was around, there was another permitted development that allowed you to turn B1A properties, offices, into residential. And there's still people that are building those schemes out. So they haven't even looked at PDMA yet. They haven't even looked at the other kind of commercial properties that you can convert into C3 residential properties. So this is still a well that has not been well mined, to mix my metaphors. Now, when you're looking at commercial conversions, there's no sort of right move for the commercial world. So we had a quick brainstorm between us at HQ, and we thought of 29 different commercial agents who claim to be national, and they claim to have a huge amount of coverage. And this is the list of them. Obviously, Rightmove and Zoopla have got their own commercial sections, but they don't have the same sort of coverage as their residential sections. Out of this list, some of these might service your area particularly well, and some of them might not service your area at all. So just like the keywords, what I would do is I'd take this list, I'd work down them, and I would find the ones that work, because the ones that work are the ones that you need to keep going back to try and find commercial property. Where I would start is Prop List and Showcase, because for me, they have by far the highest number of entries out of all of the ones on here. But like I say, again, for you, it might be a different case. At HQ, we're currently buying a huge amount of properties in our pipeline. Just for us at HQ, between us and franchisees, we've got something like £30 million worth of properties in that pipeline. Of those £30 million worth of properties, they all came through estate agents, and they were all found on Rightmove. A huge amount of time and attention is spent on sort of off-market or direct-to-vendor marketing and property sourcing. From our experience, it really isn't necessary. If you're making the right moves, if you're building your relationships with estate agents, then that is not only a very effective way to get properties, but also it's a much cheaper way than going direct to vendor or going offline, because that tends to be much more expensive. So 29 in total, which you have access to right there. Of course, another place that you can go to find property deals is the Sourced Investment Property app. So if you're not, even if you are a Source franchisee, you can check every single day for new property deals that are listed onto the app. And if any of them take your fancy, then you can contact the franchisee who's selling those property deals directly. Now, the great thing about this is that it's specifically investment property. So the numbers and the details that are on there refer to the investment opportunity of the property, rather than just on Rightmove, where you might be talking about local schools and windows and EPCs and all kinds of other stuff that really isn't as interesting to you as an investor as the pure numbers and the returns that you're going to generate. Now, we get a lot of property views, 25,000 property views in the first 7 days when we launched the app. And we're constantly growing registrations. We're constantly also growing in the number of properties that we're putting on there as well. And like I said, it's clear, concise, and it's very easy to use specifically for investors. This is talking specifically to investors. So if you haven't got it, please go and download it, because it will really help you. And you could find your next property purchase on there. There's a favorite section. There's a swipe right, swipe left for whether you like the property or not. And then you've got information about that property specifically. Like I said, there's also, when you see a property, and if you have any questions about that property, you can go directly to the property sourcer and you can have a conversation with them through the app. So they will get a notification as soon as you send them a question. So that's where I would start for online searching. Like I said, we've got a huge amount of properties in the pipeline that we have found online, and I've never not been able to find, two negatives, to not find properties when I've looked in somebody's area using the keyword search and by working with that end goal in mind. So with direct to vendor, let's not pretend that it doesn't exist. There are definitely ways that you can source properties direct to vendor. I think there's a couple of things though. I think when people think of direct to vendor, they're thinking about bandit boards, they're thinking about leaflet drops, they're thinking about these advertorials going into the local paper, that kind of stuff. Really expensive, really, really expensive stuff. What I've tried to do through my property career is build relationships with people who can do the sourcing for me. So instead of doing leaflet drops, and I have done leaflet drops, I've absolutely tried that. But instead of doing that, I find it much more effective to talk to people and talk to the network and build my network. So there's lots of different things listed on here, but the ones in bold are the ones that I would absolutely do. Every single person in property should be doing this kind of stuff. If ever you talk to a surveyor, and if you're buying property, you should be talking to surveyors and solicitors. But if ever you talk to a surveyor, let them know what you're looking for. Tell them what you're looking for and offer them an incentive to work with you. So if you're talking to a surveyor and you say to the surveyor, I'm looking for more stuff like this, and you know what, if you find something that I buy, I'll give you 500 quid. Now, if somebody had offered me 500 quid to send them property deals, then I'm absolutely going to remember that. And from your point of view, you're only paying the bill for that person if you know you're going to make your money from it. It's not like leaflets where you pay up front and you might or might not get leads from it. You're incentivizing people to work with you, but you're only liable to pay them if you know that you're going to make money from it. So surveyors and solicitors absolutely both fall into that category. A lot of councils have an empty housing officer, so it's just a no-brainer, isn't it? Just get in touch with your empty housing officer. I had a situation once where I was selling a property. It was a property that I'd sourced through social media, and I was selling that property, and the property wasn't on the empty housing list for the empty housing officer in that area because it was quite a long way away from where I live. But I contacted the empty housing officer and I actually got her to do the viewings of that property for me, because as soon as I told her how long the property had been empty for and where it was in her interest to get that property sold, because that was, she's graded on the number of empty properties that she can sell. So if I'm giving her not only the property, but also giving her the person that's going to buy it, she's incentivized to work with me to get that off her books, onto her books, and then off her books quickly, because that makes her look great. Her name was Louise, and she still sends me an email every single month of empty houses that are in that area. Tradesmen as well, exactly the same as surveyors and solicitors. Offer them an incentive. Tradesmen are in and out of houses all the time. And if you can sit down with them, take them for a coffee and tell them about the questions to ask people who are, you can tell when somebody doesn't live in a house. You can tell when somebody's not in the best financial situation and potentially they need a way of getting out of that situation. But again, with the tradesman, if you give me a property that I buy, I'll give you 500 quid. And then I'll give you the work associated with the property as well. Talk to them in ways that benefit them, but also benefit you. Because again, you're not paying that money unless you buy that property. Facebook posting and value creation. Again, for our franchisees, you're probably bored of us talking about this, but it's just a no-brainer. It's, again, how I built my profile within the property business. And all right, I have taken a step back from it now, but we as Sourced have a marketing team that take care of this posting and value creation for us on Facebook and other social media platforms. But for you as an individual, you're getting out there. That the people that do well in property are the people that are on Facebook and use it with the right tone, with the right message, with the right content every day. There's lots of different courses you can take on this. For our franchisees, that would come under the funding and investors course. Funnily enough, I'm just rewriting that at the moment to make it up to date and relevant. But posting and value creation and helping other people on Facebook and on social media, it's an absolute no-brainer. I have not only bought properties that have been presented to me on social media. Sorry, I'm in the habit of always saying Facebook instead of saying social media. But since I absolutely blasted out Facebook every single day, LinkedIn and Instagram have become more of a thing. And now as well, if I was starting out now, I'd seriously be looking at TikTok. Somebody in the office recorded this crappy video on TikTok the other day, and I think they've got something like 23,000 views of it. Yeah, Mon's sort of nodding at me. 23,000 views. Now, if you've got some kind of, promotion or something in there, then obviously the views are what is talking to me. Within your existing network as well, the chances of you either buying or making money out of a property that is owned by your existing network are very high. You might have played, I don't know, this is purely my example, but you might have played football with the same guy for 5 years and you've never talked about property. But he's in your existing network. So you talk to people about property in your existing network, and he might say, oh yeah, I've got 3 properties. One of them's a right pain in the ass at the minute. I can't do X, Y, Z. I'm looking for somebody to do something. And you need to make sure that you're forcing these conversations to happen, because that is going to present opportunities for you. And then looking at letting agents in your area, because letting agents will always have clients who say, I can't rent it out anymore. I need to sell it. So I need to go to somebody else. Because you're a letting agent, but you don't offer estate agency services. Those letting agents, again, can bring that property to you. And if you buy it, you can incentivize them with 500 quid. Again, making sure that you're paying money once you've bought the property and once you know that you're going to make money out of the property. Absolute no-brainers for me to do these things from a cash flow perspective, because they're not taking a huge amount of money out of your pocket, but also from a likelihood of you getting a deal across the line, especially with your existing network. So these are some costs that we've compiled over the last couple of years or so about generating leads from different direct-to-vendor sources. So you can see we've got an advertorial, cost per lead was about 100 quid. Leaflets, cost per lead was about 100 quid. Letters that we sent out, cost per lead was 25 quid. Brochures, 50 quid. Social media adverts, it was about £10 per lead. But if you go to your social media profile, and you start building your social media profile. And, I don't mean you don't have to be like Gary Vaynerchuk or Grant Cardone. You just have to be yourself. But be yourself and go and help people in social media groups. Be yourself and post images and updates about what you're doing during the day on property on there. It doesn't have to be big and brash and very sort of American kind of sales process. All you got to do is be yourself, because this is a long-term strategy. And if you're not yourself, you'll get found out. And if you get found out, the whole offering and the whole working with you becomes quite an undesirable thing, because you're coming across as being quite disingenuous. However, if you do it from a perspective of honesty and truth, then people will not only get to know you, but they'll also want to work with you. From the years that I was doing social media, specifically Facebook, the amount of times that people would come and talk to me, come to one of my training courses that I was running before I started Source and say, oh, I feel like I know you. How is Rufus, your little boy? Because I'd posted stuff online. And at first it was a bit odd that people were talking about my life, but then it just shows you how engaging that kind of thing is and how people buy into it. And then obviously if they end up on my training course, then that was the purpose of that whole process. Now, when it comes to due diligence, you might have found these deals and then you might not know how to make sure that you're A, being efficient with your time, but B, analyzing them properly. Now, again, our franchisees have got a pretty comprehensive deal calculator that they can use, which shows them the returns the property is going to make, whether it's rented out or whether they're going to flip it straight away. It shows them what lending is an option, and it gives them the financial overview very, very quickly. If I was in your position, I'm not a Source franchisee, I would absolutely create something like that for myself as quickly as possible. Because the way that I operate when I'm looking for property is I've got Rightmove open, I've got my search structured, so I know exactly what I'm looking for. And then the only other thing that I've got open is the deal calculator. So I can take the numbers from Rightmove, I can throw them into the deal calculator, and I can assess whether they work within 10 or 15 seconds. Because that is stage one of the due diligence process. You want to do a very quick analysis to see whether the deal works or not, to see whether it's worth you spending your time on that deal. I can't stress how important that is, just as a 15-second check. Because the amount of people that I've seen look at a deal, think that it works, and then they go down the rabbit hole of that deal, looking at title registers and looking at EPC documents and looking at planning conditions and all that kind of stuff. And they'll present all of this information to you and show you, this mountain of paperwork that they've done on this deal. And then you say to them, does the deal work? And they'll have this blank look in their face like, I've completely missed the point. I've completely missed the point because look at the mountain of work that they've done. But actually, the point is the deal has to work. Otherwise, it's not worth doing all of that work. So stage one is just a very, very simple check. And for that check, what I put into that check is, what is the purchase price of the property? What are the costs of doing the property, whatever that might be, whether I'm converting it into flats or just doing a quick refurbishment or whatever. What are the costs of that property? What am I going to be able to sell it for, and what is the margin? 15 seconds. Now, if it passes, what I then look for are red flags. So do I need planning to do what I want to do? Is it in a conservation area, which means that I can't use the permitted development? Are there local restrictions? Might there be covenants in that area? What are the things that are going to just throw this deal out straight away and go from it looking like it's a really good deal to actually there's no chance that you're going to be able to do this? So that's the second thing that I look for, the red flags. Again, the red flags and your knowledge of those red flags should come about because of the research that you've done. Stage three, then we go into the numbers and we start to identify exactly what the numbers are for this deal. So instead of just estimating the costs and estimating the purchase price, we then want to have detailed information about those costs, how they break down, what they're including, and basically as close to the pound as possible, how much that project is going to cost you and how much money you're going to make out of that project. And then stage four, we're looking at certainty. So just as a backup, because at that point, when you've done your numbers for the last time and you've got your quotes in and you know how much money you're going to make, at that point, you can start to get quite nervous. And so stage four certainty comes after that nervousness, because the certainty then reassures you that you're making the right decision. So stage four certainty, what we're looking at is whatever exit you're going to use, like if it's going to be a HMO, for example, what is the demand on HMO rooms in that area? If you're going to be selling it as a single buy-to-let, what is the demand for single buy-to-lets in that area? And if you're going to hold it into your portfolio and you're going to rent it out, what are the comparables for rental prices in that area? Just making sure that the plan that you've created is actually deliverable. Now that's where I would start for finding property, for starting off with a due diligence of property. And now we get into the goal planning, goal setting, and the 12-month planner. Again, at Source, we've created a goal setting, a goal planner for our franchisees. They all have access to that. But really, the first thing that you should do when you start out writing your goals is you should review the previous year. Because if you've followed a set path in 2021 and it's not come off, or some things have and some things haven't, when you're writing your goals for the next year, you don't want to just repeat the same thing, repeat the same mistakes. You need to understand the learnings that you've had from your previous experience, and then put them into practice and actually use the learning that you've had, and then write your goals for the next year. So avoid making the same mistakes, but also anything that's worked well, continue or understand that that is something that's done well for you in the past, and that might be something that you want to focus on in the future. So our goal setting and accountability booklet, this is what it looks like for the franchisees. And then what we do is we ask them to make commitments. We ask them to make commitments for how much time they're going to put in. What are they going to be looking for? What do they think they can achieve within 3 months? So they can make as many notes as they want to at this point when they're putting down their commitments for the first 12 for the next 12 months. We then talk to them because our goals are SMART goals. You know, I'm sure you've heard of them before. But SMART goals are the best way to be very specific and force yourself to move towards a goal. Now, what we do is we ask them to write down first of all, we do the overview and the goal setting process, which is the page that I've just shown you. And then we ask them to write down in 12 months' time, where do you want to be? What do you want to have achieved in 12 months' time? And the reason that we do that is if you think about where you want to be in 12 months' time, you're much more likely to be quite ambitious. Now, in 12 months' time, if you say, this is where you want to be, this is what you want to achieve, either on projects done, income created, whatever it might be, what you're then forcing your brain to do is come up with solutions for how to get there. Now, if you work it around the other way, and if I said to people, okay, so you're going to be in property for the whole of 2022, what do you think you can achieve in the first week? And then what do you think you can achieve in the second week? You're much more likely to be quite cautious and to operate within your current area of understanding. So you're not going to allow for innovation. You're not going to allow for imaginative thinking and problem solution. And therefore, if I said to you, come up with a plan for where you're going to be on the 30th of December, 2022, 31st of December, 2022, but start in January and work forward. Now, if I could wipe your memory at that point and say, instead of doing it that way, what I want you to do now is I want you to think of where you want to be on the 31st of December, 2022, and just be there right now. How much have you achieved? Where have you got to? What have you done? What do you want to do? You're much more likely to have a much more lofty goal. And it's far better for you to then think about how you're going to achieve that, because everyone says this, don't they? Their most inspired moments happen in the shower. Because even when you're consciously thinking about showering, your unconscious brain, because subconscious means that it's below, but it's not, it's just as powerful. Your unconscious mind is working towards solutions for that problem all of the time. That's why the best thoughts come to you in the shower, because it's constantly working away, trying to come up with solutions for the problems that you've created. So that's the way that goals should be structured. And that's what we do. And that's what I would very strongly encourage you to do next year. So once you've written your 12-month goal, you then go back and work out, well, in 6 months, where do I need to be in order to achieve that 12-month goal? And it's not as simple as, if I want 10 properties by the end of 2022, you wouldn't say that in 6 months you need 5 properties. You'd probably say that by 6 months you need 4 properties, because your momentum and the way that you scale and the way that your business develops and grows and gains capacity means that you'll be able to achieve more in the second 6 months of the year than in the first 6 months of the year. So in 12 months, if you want to have 10 properties, in 6 months you have 4 properties, and then you work it backwards. In 1 month, what do you want to have achieved in order to hit that 6-month goal? And now we're really putting the pressure on, because now you're starting to have much more of a connection. Well, in the next month, I can relate to the next month. I can't really relate to in 6 months' time because it's too far away. I definitely can't relate to 12 months' time because that's way too far away. But if we're talking about goals in the next month, then I'm starting to put pressure on myself to achieve these goals, because it might be more than I thought I could achieve, But again, your unconscious mind is going to work with you to come up with solutions to those problems. It might be to JV with somebody. It might be to come up with a brand new system of getting property leads across your table. It might be that you go to every single networking event imaginable in order to speak to the right people to get those property leads. But you know that if you continue to do that kind of thing, you're going to hit that 12-month goal at the end of 2022. So not only now have you seen what you want to achieve, but now you've got the motivation and the desire to do what is necessary today to get to that 12-month goal in 12 months' time. And now we break it down weekly. So by the end of this week, what do you need to have? What do you need to have achieved? And what I would do with these goals is I would then, at the end of every month, have a review. Have a review at the end of the month, and then write out what you're going to achieve for the next month. And again, just like when you're looking at 2021, you're learning from the mistakes that you've made. You're learning from what went well for you, and you're putting it all into practice to then move forward. So with the SMART goals, we're looking at specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. There's plenty of information about SMART goals online, especially on YouTube. So, jump over there, have a look at the way that you should write SMART goals, because they need to be all of these things. Because if they're not specific, if they're not measurable, if they're not achievable, if they're not realistic, and if they're not timed, you will find a way of getting around them. You'll find a way of not hitting those goals, but also coming up with an excuse to not hit those goals. Whereas if you write very good, very tight goals when you first start out, it makes it much less likely that you're going to be able to worm your way around the wording of that goal, because you're forcing yourself that this is your goal and you have to achieve it. And that's how our document is laid out. So here this is the next page of the document, which is what do you want to have achieved in 12 months time? So that's where we start, and then we go back to 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, weekly, and then we have a weekly tracker. It's not the most glamorous spreadsheet that we've ever made, but the point is it works. And that weekly tracker, not only we've got 2 weekly trackers actually. We've got one for time to help franchisees organize their time. We've got another one for results, for how many calls they want to have made, how many estate agents, how many viewings, how many properties they viewed, so on and so forth. So everything is tracked so that at the end of that month, it's much easier for you to review your situation. Now, we've got franchisees that cover a lot of different property strategies. We've got Shahid here, who he specifically looks to sell serviced accommodation units. He tends to secure them, start running them himself, and then sell them off in blocks, in groups of like 5 separate units. So Shahid has been doing that for a long time. He's based in Manchester. Fantastically well organized with his time, and with understanding his product and understanding his investors. And we've got people who are building and converting their own kind of properties. This is Jamie. He's in Barnsley. That's the property that you've got in the picture there is one that he built himself, and that one was funded by an investor in just under 5 minutes when we launched it on sourced capital. So these are people that have been very successful throughout this really tough market, because they've stayed consistent. They're very good with people. They've built relationships, and they've found property leads for themselves. From your point of view, and whether you're just starting out or whether you're a little bit further along your journey into property, I can't stress enough that it's very important that you realize that this is a business. It's a business, and your vehicle for making money is property. So in business, if you were starting up in any other industry, what you'd look after first is your cash flow. You'd sort your cash flow out. You create that cash flow, create that certainty that you're going to be making an income, and then you go on to another, a bigger strategy, a bigger contract that you're looking for in other business. In property, a bigger property that's going to return you more money, and you build your property business up from there. When you're just starting a new business, you go after small contracts first that provide you cash flow. You don't go for that mammoth diamond in the rough contract that it's going to make you a huge amount of money, but actually you don't have the experience, the capacity, or the know-how to deliver on that contract yet. In property, it's exactly the same. I would very strongly recommend that you build your business properly, and you look after your cash flow, and then you move up into different strategies. the infographic that I just showed you is quite a modest reflection of what you can achieve in a year in property. And again, we were talking earlier about having the end in mind when you're looking for property. Well, when you're building your property business, you need to have the end in mind as well. What do you want to achieve? Because actually, most people, if you ask them what strategy they want to do, and if you ask them what kind of income they want to make, the way that they can generate that income isn't strategy dependent. So a lot of people will say, well, I want to be a developer. And why do you want to be a developer? Well, I want to make £100,000 a year. You can make £100,000 a year in so many different ways in property. You don't need to be a developer. And actually, if you do want to be a developer, there's quite a lot of risk involved in being a developer. And you need to risk not only your own time, but your own money to be a developer. There are other ways that you can make money out of property that provide you with much more security. So that might be something that you need to look at rather than just being a developer. So have your end result in mind when you're creating the plan for your business. Now, for our franchisees, if they did find a big project, what they can do is they can come and JV with us. We've got a lot of experience here at Sourced HQ. We also provide our franchisees with a lot of security by sharing the risk with them. So if franchisees, if they're out there, if they're building their cash flow and they find this big deal that works really well, but they don't have the know-how and they don't have the upfront costs to do that project, we can jump in and we can joint venture with them. Now, if we joint venture with them, it means that they're still involved in that deal. They get to learn from the deal. They get the experience of the deal. They get that deal on their property CV, because before that opportunity to joint venture with us, they might have had to just sell that property deal on, and that's the end of it. That's the end of their experience. But by joint venturing with us, it means that they get the benefits of all of that experience, and obviously they get the benefits of sharing the profits with us as well. We can also give them access to 100% funding, because we'll take some of the funding from Source Capital, and any other funding, any other upfront costs that are required, then Sourced HQ can put in for them. Again, a big benefit, especially if people are just looking after their cash flow. This is Chris Richardson. This is a property that he found in Bournemouth, and this is one that we joint ventured with him on. Now, this was his first ever property deal, and not only was this his first ever property deal, but he actually spent 6 months in Romania while this project was ongoing. So not only did he get to benefit from the profit that was generated at the end of this property deal, but also we gave him the freedom to not have to be tied down to this deal while it was ongoing. And this is Jason. This is a property that is in Hull. And this is one that we've just okayed. So this conversion hasn't actually happened yet. And in fact, I think we are about to complete on this project in the next couple of months or so. So we're constantly looking for property deals with our franchisees. We're there for them. We're there to put in upfront costs. We're there to share the experience and help them build their own property businesses and portfolios as quickly as possible. Our training schedule is pretty comprehensive. It's actually a blended training schedule, because we have online courses and we have face-to-face courses. In fact, the training schedule for this year has just been designed and will be sent out to our franchisees any day now. It's just being put into our booking system so that franchisees can just go online. They can book themselves onto in-person training events or online training events, and they have access to them whenever they need them. We have a huge network of people, and it's great that our franchisees look to us at HQ to provide training and provide support and provide them with up-to-date property information. But actually, one of the big benefits of being part of Sourced is the network and the other 150 franchisees. We have exclusive groups that they can get into, like on WhatsApp and on Facebook and stuff. And the conversations that go in there, and the quality of conversation and the flow of information is absolutely fantastic. And then at Source Capital can fund up to 100% of the purchase price and the refurbishment cost of a property project. This is went through that too quickly. That's a testimonial from one of our franchisees that has borrowed from Source Capital previously. And then what we also do here at Sourced is we launched a system this year called Escudo, which is a lead generation system. Now, what we do with Escudo is we scrape lots of online places to find property deals, and then we put them through complicated complicated. I meant complex. Complex algorithms to see whether the deals work. And those algorithms, they pull in data from lots of different sources. So we scrape the original data, then we pull in data from different sources like the EPC register, like land registry, like spare room, like property data. And then we put them through a series of different algorithms, which finds out whether that property will work as a HMO or as a commercial conversion or as a rent to rent, for example. And then if they pass, we put them through to our franchisees. This was something that we built this year. We tested it out. The equations seem to work quite well. It's because it's our software, because it's our algorithm. You know, we are constantly updating this to make it as effective and efficient as possible. And for our franchisees, we're then going to roll out the full launch of Escudo as soon as we possibly can, because we've been working on about 10% lead capacity over the last few months or so. But now that we know it works, we're going to roll that out and ramp it up to 100% and produce a huge number of leads for our franchisees. These are the ones that are currently available, and we are looking to grow that list of potential strategies as soon as we can. We have over 100,000 investors registered onto our database, and obviously we've launched the app, which is growing in numbers as well. And our franchisees have access to that 100,000 person database by putting property opportunities or just investment opportunities out there to them. What happens then is that lead is created for the franchisees, and that goes through to them, and the franchisee can then build that relationship with the investor and work with that investor. And that they might be working with the investor to find them property deals, to joint venture with them, however they want to work with them. You know, we're here to facilitate and help our franchisees be successful. We're not trying to stop them operating with investors in any particular way. We've then got our training schedule, which is made up of these courses for next year. So we've got funding, we've got lease options, we've got flips and refurbs, commercial conversions, new build developments, rent to rent, induction and sourcing and deal packaging. We've also got a lettings course. We've also got a tax and accounting course. And we're looking to have project management courses, QS courses, and site manager courses within the first quarter of next year. We've got at least 2 courses going on throughout the whole of the year. In fact, the face-to-face training days that we're doing for our franchisees in 2022 is 200 individual training days. So what exactly is the package? So as a franchise, what you get is a national brand, which opens doors for you, and it's why a lot of people have come on board with us at Sourced. You get your territory of 40,000 households. You get induction training and how to build your cash flow, because we don't just talk about deal sourcing and packaging, we talk about cash flow in general on your induction training. You get a proven business model, and you get the vast experience of the team here at HQ, and that's £12,500 plus VAT. And then on an ongoing basis, you get property leads into your CRM, you get investor leads into your CRM, you get access to online training 24/7, you get access to the app, you get weekly or local events and support days held, like I say, locally. You get access to the peer-to-peer platform, face-to-face training events, you get SIN networking management, and you get legal documents, and that's £200 per month plus VAT. We also ask for 5% of the net profit that you generate. And the reason that we roll that right to the back is that we want to start making money when you make money. So we keep all of our other costs down as much as we possibly can. Now, in comparison to putting all of those things together in, if you were going to find property deals on the market, investor leads on the market, training available on the market, face-to-face training, if you're going to put that together from a monthly basis, you're looking at a cost of around £5,100 per month, which is a big difference on £200 per month. So from the support days, what our support guys do is they work to a tier system. And when you first come on board, they section off more time in their diary for you, because you're going to need more help, more support, more hand-holding than somebody who's well experienced in property. So there's local small group support days. In fact, there's one going on in the next room to me today in the Northwest. There's monthly face-to-face training events. There's unlimited deal review. So your support person will review your deals with you to make sure that you're looking at the deal correctly. They can suggest improvements and updates to the deal in case you're not looking at the deal in the right way. You've got access to your mentor via calendar links, so you can book yourself into their calendar whenever you wish. You've got structuring and packaging help. So we've got not only face-to-face days, but we do one-to-one days as well, where you can meet your mentor for an hour or two, and you can go through different strategies, different structures to make sure that you understand them, different funding options to make sure that you understand them. And then if you've got projects going on, or if you need help going to talk to estate agents, your mentor is there to be able to book in time to come and see you as well. We've then got some optional add-ons, which include Loop, which is a way of sending direct-to-vendor messages, direct-to-vendor mail, and that's all built into our CRM system. And our franchisees get a 30% discount on operating that system. And then we've got a landing site as well, and our franchisees get a 50% discount off using Landing Site, which again is a prospecting tool and a data amalgamation tool. Our franchisees can also use SDL auctions. We've got SDL coming in tomorrow actually to see us. So through the auctions, they put the deal into our CRM system. It's sent across to SDL. When the deal is sold or through the SDL, the franchisee will receive a 2% fee within 7 days of that property selling in the auction. Now, how do franchisees maximize their investment into Source? And what would I recommend that you do if you come on board? First of all, training sessions. And those training sessions are online and in person. Make sure that you're booking yourself on training sessions. The weekly group sessions and networking, and for the weekly group sessions, it might be a subject that you've already done before, but for the networking and for getting to know the other 4 or 5 people in the room, it's absolutely vital. Because again, you've seen I've been banging on about networking and the importance of growing your network. Use the Source franchise in order to grow your network, because these are all people that are in property and have an interest in property just like you. Make sure that you come and arrange those one-to-one sessions with your support person. Make sure that you watch the webinars. So it's exclusively for our franchisees. We do a webinar every Wednesday. The Wednesday webinar is what it's called, surprisingly. That's at 11 o'clock every Wednesday. Franchisees can get on there. They can ask questions. They can find out about new innovations. They can find out about people that we've got ties with, discounted products that we can get hold of. Make sure that you're getting involved with those Wednesday webinars. Obviously, Source Capital, make sure that you, if Source Capital are out there and talking to people or doing road shows or doing events, go and see them. Make sure that you're talking to Source Capital so you can see what projects are being funded, what's going through to capital and is working very successfully at any one time. You've got group Zooms, you've got meetings and sessions with your support person if you need to use them. And then you've got the deals. The best way that people learn, I think, is even if they think they find a deal and they think it doesn't work, still send it through to the support person and have a conversation about it. Because they might not be thinking about different things that can happen with that deal, and the support person might be able to come up with a way that deal actually works instead of just thinking that it's not going to work. But also it gives them the confidence to know that if the support person agrees with them that the deal doesn't work, then that's great. They know that they're looking at it the right way, and that gives them the confidence the next time they go and look at a deal that they're looking at things correctly. So that's it from me. That's how I find deals, and that's how I plan my year from one year to the next. So really appreciate your time. I can see that pretty much everybody stayed with us all the way through that process and that presentation. So thank you very much for your time. And like I said, there's going to be a Q&A session at the end. So Monica, over to you.
Yes, hi guys. So if you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A box, and I'll pick some of the best ones, and Chris will answer them for you.
So what's the first one, Mon?
Well, I wasn't going to read this one actually.
There's some on the chat. Are you going to wait for people to put them in the Q&A?
Yeah, in the Q&A, please. I've already answered some of the ones that came through during the webinar.
Okay. Great, guys. So just, can you mute yourself? So if you've got any questions, just jump into the Q&A box now. Jump into the Q&A box, put them in there.
We've had one question, how do we get a copy of this presentation? And this one I can answer actually. So we will be sending out the recording tomorrow to everyone.
And how will you be doing that, by email?
Yes, it will be an email.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm loving that there's not many questions. That means I must have been really comprehensive with the presentation. So I'm totally happy with that. I'll stay on for another 10 or 15 seconds or so. So if you have got any questions, then feel free to send them over. But otherwise, we'll call this to a close.
Someone asked how long will the presentation be available? It will be available to you indefinitely because it will be a recording. We have someone else asking, can you clarify how JV partner work? I've been receiving emails about it. Chris?
So if you mute yourself again, just to make sure that I've got no feedback. Yeah, it's a good question. So the JV partner is basically when a franchisee has found a deal and there is something in that deal that they haven't got. There's something they need for that deal to go through that they haven't got. Now, it could be experience. It could be upfront costs for the deal. It could be anything. So that with the JV partner, with the JV deals, if you have a look at that deal, have a look at that area, have a look at that franchisee. If you like what you see, what I would recommend that you do is have a conversation with the franchisee about it, because from one project to the next, exactly what they're looking for might be slightly different. So if you like the look of the deal, because the numbers of the deal are on there at the bottom of those emails, if you like the numbers, then go and talk to the franchisee about it. That's what I would recommend. But that's a very good question, Shaza. Thanks very much. Let's have a look. Mon, any other questions that I can answer?
Not really, not at the moment.
Great. Okay. So at that point, guys, thanks very much for spending your Wednesday afternoon with me. I know Monica has answered your questions as well while I've been talking. So really appreciate you sending those questions through. Really appreciate your time. If you want to come and talk to us, you can see our email address on the screen right there, franchise@source.co. So I've got one other person that's just said that they have a question, so I will hang on for that. But if you can be quick in typing that question, that would be much appreciated. This is like one of those things where somebody's looking over your shoulder when you're typing, and as soon as somebody's looking over your shoulder when you're typing, your fingers turn into somebody else's fingers and your typing slows down by about 50%. That always happens to me when somebody else is watching me type. I swear I'm a fast typer. Olu, do you offer a hands-off approach? Look, this is property. This is building your own business. You are going to need to be involved. There are decisions that you will need to make through buying property and through adding it to your portfolio that we are not set up to take over for you. And I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you what the benefit of it is for you. There are companies out there that will find a property, do a property renovation, and then sell you the property. But what they're going to do is they're going to sell you the property for the uplifted price. Now, that is a great deal for them, but you don't get such a good deal out of it because you're buying the property at the end, once it's already been done, once the margin has been taken out of it. What we do, and what we encourage our franchisees to do, is to find the property and make that margin. We want them to be the main beneficiary of that property project. We don't want it to be somebody else. So we train them, much like the presentation that I've just shown you, we train them how to find that property at the very beginning. And all the way through that, they're making decisions as to what the exit's going to be for the property, whether they like the look of that property. Sorry, I meant in terms of managing the refurb works. No, again, it's exactly the same concept. You need to make decisions through that refurbishment work. Now, we can help you in that situation. You can come on board with us. We can help you find property. But through the refurbishment, you're going to employ professionals. We've got quantity surveyors, we've got project managers, we've got site managers that we employ. But the decision making still comes back to the person that owns the business at every point, because essentially it's their money. So to say that it's going to be a hands-off approach, I think is disingenuous. You will need to be involved. To be absolutely frank with you, we don't want you to think that it would be a hands-off approach when we know that it doesn't work like that. Now, if you are specifically looking for a hands-off approach, then there are other companies that you can go to that will sell the property to you once the refurbishment work has been done. But they want their piece of the pie at that point. Okay, no other questions. So again, thanks very much for spending your Wednesday afternoon with me. I hope it's been useful. Don't forget to plan properly. Don't forget to actually do it, because a lot of people come on and they say, yeah, planning, yeah, it's a really good thing to do. Should really plan out what I'm going to do in 2022, and they don't do it. What a mistake that is. We as a business are currently planning for 2022. We're putting a lot of time and effort into planning for 2022, and I would advise that you do exactly the same thing. Just one other quick question. How many years is your franchise? So we've been going for 4 years, and if you sign up to a franchise, then that franchise contract lasts for 5 years. And then you have an option to renew your franchise contract after 5 years at a cost of £1,000. Okay, thanks very much. I'm going to mute myself now because I can see that Monica is still typing, but really appreciate your time. Thanks very much, and hopefully I'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.